I'm going to be president. Sure you are. Background. I joined this Japanese-based company a few years ago as a production assistant. I wasn't assisting anyone in production. I was the only American, the only one fully fluent in both languages. Still am. Still looking for a better line of work. So I ended up helping everyone else in some fashion or another. Well, I also had to do my own work, of course, but when things shipped behind schedule, it was made out to be my fault. I helped our shipping manager send things out and receive them, count, quality check them, weigh the boxes, palletize them, etc. Our sales manager, the man himself in question, constantly asked me to double-check his emails so he sounded more natural and professional, and even had me get involved on numerous occasions to help him save face or placate customers. Event. From the time that I started, we'd been struggling to keep time because of inventory issues. These issues were both because our customer didn't keep accurate numbers and neither did we, not just for the parts they sent us for assembly but also for the boxes we used to package the order before shipping. Boxes I used and only I used. Boxes I was not allowed to order, but had to ask Mr. Sales Manager to order for me. Well, he would forget to order them, and then I'd remind him, and he'd forget again, only ordering days later. It happened enough times that our customer finally demanded we count up our inventory. I made an Excel sheet, made it legible in both ENG/JPN, color-coded areas of concern, and I also added everything we used in the office, from boxes only used by shipping to gloves, to the parts from our biggest customer as they were demanding we count. Everything got counted, everything was put in that document, and I made sure to include a field of when it was last counted. Result: suddenly we're making good time and getting ahead and I don't have to worry about boxes. Now, this entire time, Mr. Sales was working on a 20-page document that proved our president didn't do his job, trying to report him to the JP Home Office and get him fired. My two coworkers got a glimpse of it and saw there were sections on all of US 2, bad-mouthing our work, trying to make it seem like only Mr. Sales was on the up and up. Finally, the JP parent company sends someone. This guy is unknown to all of us, the son-in-law of the company owner of a family-owned and run company, pretty common in Japan. Well, only I and our shipping manager learn of this, since we actually talk to the guy. But Mr. Sales likes to treat him like a goof and poke fun at him. This guy JP sent to us, he carefully plans meetings with us for while Mr. Sales is out of the office, and interviews all of us about what's been up at our USA branch. Our late shipments come up, and my pattern of shipping late and insulting our biggest customer with my laziness. There's also reports of me being on my phone too much, preoccupied watching videos or listening to music and not working. I start pulling out the emails and the inventory I was told to create. I show him the inventory history and my emails asking for Mr. Sales to do his job from before it was made. I show him the ship dates and the differences before and after I made the inventory file. Fallout. A friend of mine in Japan is suicidal, and I'd lost contact with him a few times. I decide to go to Japan and help him out, try to live there, but at best I have 6 months of savings. That means I have to leave the company. I know this guy from JP is going to arrive and all Mr. Sales' delusions of being USA branch president will die, but I couldn't be there to see it. So I went to Japan, spent my 6 months successfully. Friend re-entered college to chase his dreams instead of being a dead-eyed salaryman. He's on the mend, and returned to the US a few months ago. I get in contact with the company, and they rehire me. Now that I'm here, I learn Mr. Sales quit shortly after I left, but not before he aired every last thing he had told me would stay between us and take all but a literal dump on my desk. I check my old inventory file. He zeroed it out. The company has been shipping late again. Hired a new guy to do my job that's been getting parts returned to fix errors numerous times. Something that only happened to me once. Do they want me to fix any of that? No. Here's a book of local businesses. Call them drum-up customers. Okay. Can do. Thanks for the paycheck for doing something so easy that won't ever work, I guess. TLDR first. Had a boss who constantly talked badly about everyone who quit when he realized he wasn't ever going to be in charge. And despite his efforts, I followed his orders and made sure everyone knew it was all his own fault. No fashion boots allowed. A few years back, when I was in high school, I lived in a small country town as a very flamboyant, obviously queer teenage boy without even needing to say anything. Needless to say, I was definitely the most popular kid in school, and everyone was totally supportive. Even the staff at the school wasn't the biggest fan of me, unfortunately, even though I was a not-so-straight a student who never caused any trouble. Luckily, being raised on a very literal farm, my family was and continues to be really supportive. They knew how interested I am in fashion, and my parents surprised me on my birthday with this pair of heeled Doc Marten Chelsea boots I had been saving up for. Obviously, I was ecstatic and wore them constantly both in and out of school for about a week before I was dress-coded for them. Unfortunately, this was not my first time being dress-coded because of my tendency to wear more feminine clothing, so I had developed the habit of carrying the dress code pamphlet on me in my bag to prove my innocence because I really was never breaking any rules, they just happened to not like what I was wearing. I pointed out that there was nothing about boots or heels, and my teacher just sort of scoffed at me and told me to go to the front office. Apparently they had updated it, and if I had read the newsletter that morning, I would have known that. I went up to the front office, and true to what she had said, they had added a rule to the effect of work boots were allowed but no fashion boots. Unfortunately, it was very obviously targeted because no one, male or female, was wearing anything like that except for me. My parents knew that too. When I got home and told them about it, they were furious for me. My dad took me out the very next day after school to a boot store and quite literally bought me a $300 pair of women's black work boots that were completed with even some sparkly rhinestones on them. Quite frankly, these boots made me look more queer than the first pair ever did, and I loved them. I wore these proudly with a black sparkly hat I already owned to school the next day and didn't even make to second period before I was called to the front office for violating dress code. The assistant principal told me these were obviously violating dress code, and I insisted that these were work boots, and practically every other kid wore cowboy boots to school every single day, so there couldn't possibly be a problem with mine. She wouldn't budge, and neither would I, so my parents were called, and it was escalated to the principal. Luckily, we expected this and were prepared. My dad showed up in all of his fresh off-the-farm dirt-covered glory to my principal office. The conversation went to the effect of her sitting there telling my father, "Those are very obviously for fashion and are violating dress code," and my father would respond something to the effect of, "How do you know what my kid chooses to wear to work in? Since when is wearing boots breaking dress code? Look at everyone else." And this went back and forth for quite frankly an embarrassing amount of the time, but by the end I was allowed to wear my boots. Much to the annoyance of my old high school staff, I wore those damn black sparkly boots practically every day for the rest of my high school experience, and then 3 years later, when I was long gone in college, my little sister, an open and proud lesbian by the way, entered high school. We just happened to have the same shoe size, and I didn't mind loaning her the boots. She is a junior now and continuing my legacy of terrorizing the homophobic teachers and staff by wearing those same shoes to school, which held up amazing by the way, to this day. TLDR, homophobic school staff changed dress code rules just so I couldn't wear a pair of women boots, so my dad bought me the most obnoxious sparkly queer-looking cowboy boots out there that technically fit the dress code. Payback. Years ago, I worked for a defense contractor doing heavy manufacturing and welding. Every process, fitting, was all documented. When ready to be welded, it was inspected by quality control. We had an inspector would write a rejection report, doing this passed this off to the next shift so he could skip the paperwork. Normally, the piece he'd reject was an engineering issue, nothing serious, we would just weld it like normal. So one day my partner were stuck with this and decided to follow repairs procedure. Remove assembly and do an edge buildup on the piece. We normally did that with piece in place. This time we removed it, followed correct procedures, and the assembly was ready at the end of our shift for the daytime guys. They pissed and moaned. Daytime supervisors were mad. When we come the next night, we were confronted about what we did, and we showed them the correct procedure for the repair work. After that, we no longer were stuck with doing that. That inspector was moved and assembly error was corrected. I enjoyed using their procedures to prove a point. There was no more hurry-up games played.
University parking rules, I don't make them, I just follow them. Back in the mid-90s, when I attended college, parking permits were required for all cars to park at my school. The stated requirement was that the permit had to be attached to the windshield with its own backing. The permit had an adhesive backing to use when affixing to the windshield. Taping the permit to the windshield was explicitly not allowed. When I got my permit, I took some clear plastic wrap and wrapped it around the middle of the permit, leaving just a sliver of the permit sticky backing at the top and bottom of the permit. I then attached the permit to the windshield of my car. Later, I got a parking ticket from my university for taping my parking permit to the windshield of my windshield. Of course, I appealed the ticket. When I went to the window to explain how I creatively attached the permit, the clerk said, "That's not what we meant." I replied, "I don't care about what you meant. I care about what was written." The permit is attached to the windshield with its own backing. Surprisingly, the ticket was dropped, and I never had another issue.
Big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I really appreciate the support. And please hit the subscribe button.